Good morning. Thanks again for tuning in to Millennial Diligence. I just wanted to do another one of these recaps and go over all the great responses you guys gave this week. The first one that made a splash was the millennial consumerism waning video. And I think this struck a chord with a lot of people of my generation because I think not only can we not afford to be so materialistic and consumeristic, it's just having less of an impact on our overall well-being and happiness. And I think the comments really reflected that. Here's one from Awesome Hero. I've been a minimalist since the very beginning. I don't need to buy luxury things to try to fill a void in my heart. Happiness comes from within. And that might sound kind of cliche, but honestly, I'm starting to believe that more and more. Like, if you buy something and you spend a bunch of money on it, that dopamine hit that you're going to get from it most likely isn't going to last very long. And especially if it's not something practical that you're going to use regularly, there's a good chance that it's going to just end up collecting dust. At least that's my experience, and it sounds like it's his experience as well. Older millennial here. I've already purchased my big box item, house, car, etc. Now I focus on low-cost things like camping and retro games. Oh man, after my own heart there, that's for sure. Once you get the necessities met and you can kind of focus on that and just making sure that you're secure, I think that's what millennials are going to start focusing on going forward, is focusing more on security and having a future, having a viable future. Here's one from a Gen Xer. I'm Gen X, so I had opportunity. In 2014, I was worth 6 million pounds and I was miserable in life. The novelty had worn off and my life was empty. This is a truly great comment, very heartfelt. Let me continue. I suffered brain damage in a mugging and lost everything. Became bankrupt and homeless, got an apartment with no furniture. At first, I was ashamed of my poverty, but gradually I began to like the empty space. I realized the old saying really is true. You don't own your possessions, they own you. 8 years later, I live a tiny, happy, minimalist life. We got a lot of comments from minimalists. I'm not saying that was the whole directive behind the video, but definitely these were the responses I was kind of looking for, and I appreciate you guys leaving them. Here's one that kind of went against the grain, and I appreciate their insight. I still impulse buy, and I still get joy from the things that I buy that way. But it's worth noting that these are almost never as a result of advertising. If I discover things in other ways, like finding them in a shop, having my own impulsive idea and seeking out the product that fits, or seeing fan content online, distinctly different seeing an ad, though I know, yes, those are sometimes sponsored. Advertising is my enemy. This is another thing that came up a lot in the comments. Advertising is my enemy. I run ad blockers on everything I can, and where I can't, I do not use that service. The few ads that I can avoid are in most cases likely to impart a negative view of the product and fuel my feelings of opposition, making me less likely to purchase it. That's the whole thing that I was trying to get across with this video, honestly. As we age, not only are we, as millennials, we're being targeted less for these ads, but I think once you reach a certain age and you get annoyed by these ads, and then before you know it, you won't even consider buying that product because of that annoying, repetitive ad, etc. So I appreciate the insight on that comment as well. Moving on to the Gen Z and millennials aren't getting enough sleep video. This was a video that I didn't expect to get such a response from because it was based on an article, just a poll basically, and I think in our heart of hearts, we kind of all know that we're not getting enough quality sleep, but it was surprising to see so many of your responses reflect that and reflect the results from the poll. Top comment. I'm not American, but as someone in Gen Z who definitely does not get enough sleep, I think it's a rise in hustle culture and how much work people are being pressured to do to succeed. Recently on social media, there's been a rise of creators perpetuating the idea that we need to work on something 24/7 to get ahead in life. Universities are becoming more competitive, and students need to take on more activities to get into the schools they want. So sadly, everyone's being pressured to work constantly and prioritize that over sleep. I think the pressure to hustle and grind has pervaded our millennial culture for going on a decade now. And I think you could only do that for so long before burnout sets in and your work-life balance is almost destroyed and it starts affecting other things in your life, including sleep. So I really appreciate that comment. And I think that's very apt to what the poll results were. Here's one about the quality of the sleep. Well, for me, it doesn't matter how much sleep I get. I'm always tired or exhausted. I don't seem to snore. I've asked people. My sleep just isn't healing me like it should. As far as purposely not sleeping enough, I think a lot of people just don't want to spend any more time sleeping than they absolutely have to. There's too much to do and not enough time. I mean, yeah, you don't want to get into that cycle of where you're just sleeping and working. That's pretty brutal. And if you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, that can become a reality really quick. One last thing on the sleep topic. Me watching this as I've been awake for 14 hours now. I think it's a lack of consistency routine as being on the go is the norm, at least in America. We're seeing a lot of that stuff. These comments are pertaining particularly to Americans. I know my sleep is terrible when I'm stressed, like today. I've also realized that I can't nap and go back to sleep unless I'm sick. So that's a whole nother thing. Like, I swear we get into these routines. If we get into a bad one, we'll start taking naps at odd times. Our sleep schedule will get messed up, and that will just degrade the quality of the sleep that much more. I know that 5 hours of good sleep for me is better than 8 hours of tossing and turning. There's no doubt about it. And finally, the whole nobody wants to work anymore meme. This was my favorite video in terms of the responses. You guys killed it and gave a lot of really good insights. Here's one from an elder millennial. I'm 40. I have 2 degrees, BA Sociology and BS Information Technology. Got it to make up for the SOC degree. Turns out neither pay great. For the last decade, I've realized there's more value in entry-level positions and working your way up through the company. I should have started working at McDonald's when I was a teenager and could afford to make those low wages, then worked up through the ranks. By now, I'd probably be a franchise owner or a district manager making bank and happy with the retirement outlook. During my teen years, it was cooler to work for local restaurants as a dishwasher or cook, so I did. Unless you want to die in that exact same restaurant, there's little to no upward growth. So falling into the college trap, I know I now have $100K in student loan debt, still after all these years, and I'm laid off from the tech industry. Everybody needs their McDonald's though. Yet I can't afford to, at 40, start making $15 an hour max to make Big Macs and McNuggets in hopes of rising through the ranks over the next 20 to 25 years. I think this is a common thing among millennials. We're looking back at going to college, and we're looking basically, especially if you got a liberal arts degree like I did, my fault. We're looking back at those years, not that they were wasted because we probably had a lot of fun during those years, but that's all years that you could have spent in the actual workforce gaining experience. Even at a place like McDonald's, if you started from the bottom rung. A lot of the comments on this video reflected that very sentiment. Here's another one. I'm very motivated to find a profitable path for my future, but selling myself to debt slavery for a chance at an entry-level position just doesn't cut it. You're right. I've seen the unfortunate outcome of millennial student loan debt. You guys really got the short end of the stick with how much this idea was rammed down your throats growing up. I mean, what we can't slip into as millennials is the victim mindset. We have to just own it and just move on. And I've grappled with that over the years. Like, I wish I would have been told differently, but honestly, I think most of us acted in the best way we knew how at the time. But this doesn't apply to all millennials. Some millennials got great degrees and got great careers. So we can't just use that blanket term, in terms of just, well, woe is me, I got a degree and didn't get my dream job. No, we can't just fall into victimhood mentality, because that's not going to help anything. What we should do is warn future generations about this. If you aren't certain what you want to do, and most people aren't when they're 18, let's be honest. When you're 18, to ask what you want to do with the rest of your life is kind of asinine, to be honest, unless you're a prodigy or you are dead focused on what you know you want to do. Either way, I would focus on I would look at the profitability of that degree and how in demand that degree is going to be, as far as you can tell. One of the pretenses of this channel is to open a dialogue and find a way to navigate life going forward as a millennial, but also to serve as kind of a warning to younger generations. Hey, this might look like what you're going to face if you get a degree that isn't as valuable, and we're already seeing that. So this comment reflected that, and I really appreciate it. That was a Gen Zer that commented that. Here's another comment that reflects that idea. If you're getting older, we've been the frog in the slow to boil pot. Youngsters see it and know better than to jump in. That actually makes a lot of sense. I don't want to get into the whole idea of like generalizations and things like that, but in general, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, I would be very careful about going into like the previous gentleman said, $100,000 in student debt, $50,000 student debt. You know, just be careful. Take a measured approach to your future and what you want to do with it. Because if you have to take loans out the day you graduate, you are going to be that much in debt. You're going to be that much behind. You're going to have to prioritize paying it off. And college isn't getting any cheaper, unfortunately. When you're thinking about going to school or going back to school, say as a millennial, just be aware. The loans are real. I don't think Biden or anybody's going to come in and wave their magic wand for everybody. That's just not going to work that way. But just take a measured approach. And finally, we got a comment from one of the people that really inspired this channel, Josh Piper. He does a channel up in Washington, and it's pretty much required viewing for someone like me. I love watching his insights, and he's got these Saturn videos that just crack me up. They're so great. So Josh said, yes, the conventional path for younger people just isn't going to work out. I do agree with what you said about it's still being possible if you're incredibly disciplined. Yeah, I mentioned that if you can work a 9 to 5 and you can make retirement happen possibly, but you have to budget and you have to be so disciplined and you have to be on your grind and having upward more mobility to do it. Other than that, I think entrepreneurship really is the way to get out of wage slavery and have a general retirement, have a conventional retirement. Let's continue. But the 2.5 kids, decent house, and 2 cars thing is just not possible on what the average income is now. And absolutely, I agree with it being incredibly discouraging when one realizes their wages are not at all keeping up with inflation and the true cost of living. Of course, that may be motivation to work harder and change your situation and circumstances in life. But for many people, they become poorer every year. Inflation eats into their true purchasing power. A lot of people are no longer even thinking about achieving the American dream, just simply surviving and paying the bills. Hopefully it will get better, but yes, I think in order to really thrive in today's world, you have to do something outside the box and creative. The traditional path to prosperity just isn't really there anymore for the normal person. Thanks, Josh, for that comment. Yeah, I agree. We're going to have to get creative, and I think that's one of the objectives I want this channel to be about. I want to come up with solutions that we can come up with as Gen Zers, millennials, even Gen Alpha as they get older, if this channel still exists, to navigate this. We are going to have to get creative in the Western world to really have a conventional life and have the life that was, I wouldn't say promised to us, but historically has been the norm since probably the post-war era, basically what the boomers enjoyed. And that may be out of reach, but we have to try. Like I said, we cannot get caught in this self-deprecating, woe is me, victimhood mentality. That's not going to help our generation or the generations to follow. So we really need to focus on that. The depreciating value of our money. That's why you have to invest in assets, be it hard assets, paper assets. You have got to put your money into assets and not depreciating things like cars and shit like that. You have to think about what can you put your money into that will actually hold its value over time. And I'll make some more videos about that. I'm not the biggest investor. I just, I have my retirement accounts and whatnot and invest in index funds and things like that. I do a little speculating, but not much. But investing in assets is probably your safest bet. And if you do get average 8% on an index fund, that's still going to at least maintain the value of your money. I can't guarantee that it will grow insanely and you'll be making all this money from that, but 8% should outpace inflation and should at least maintain the value of every dollar you invest, basically. I'll just finish this video by saying this. Guys, I really appreciate all the comments. This channel has grown tremendously in terms of, I have done other channels before. This one seems to have struck a chord and I'm really going to put my all into it. I want to do a lot more research on things. I don't want to go off the cuff so much. I want to make it worth it for you guys to watch. I want you to get something out of each and every video. So I really want to keep the videos brief, probably under 5 minutes, obviously, for my daily videos. But please comment topics that you want me to cover below, and I promise I will put a good amount of research into each one and try to give a measured approach. And ultimately, do what the channel is designed to do, is start a dialogue. So thanks again for tuning in to Millennial Diligence, and we'll see you in the next one.